All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another live stream. So, today we are going to be talking about this thing called ChatGPT. Not sure if you've heard about it. Not sure if you've heard me talk about it. I'm being facetious. You probably heard about it. And as you might be aware, if you're familiar with my streams, the last couple years I've produced a lot of content around ChatGPT and generative AI, but that's been more from a flavor of like being an AI engineer, where you're actually trying to take these AI models and then build them into like enterprise level solutions. But what I've never actually done is I've never actually done a stream on just like how should the average user, Joe on the street, use ChatGPT, because I personally found a lot of like to be clear, the most value that I get from ChatGPT or other generative AI services is in support of like trying to learn new things or prepare for these streams. But I also use ChatGPT quite a bit for just other random things. So if you read the description of the stream, you might have seen that I've used ChatGPT to help me fix my toilet. I've used it to help figure out gifts for my wife and kids, et cetera, et cetera. So like I use it for quite a variety of purposes. And so today I want to cover just like what is ChatGPT, an overview of like what ChatGPT is, how to think about it, what it's good for, and what it's not good for. But before we jump into that, one thing I do want to call out here is you might be wondering, well, I've heard about these other services. I've heard about Anthropic Claude, or I've heard of Elon Musk's new XAI Grok, or I've heard of Microsoft Copilot. We will discuss these and like how they're different necessarily, but so like today, even though we're going to fixate specifically on ChatGPT, a lot of the concepts are going to be the same, but I will specifically call out when you should be thinking differently about these other services and whatnot. So if you've never seen ChatGPT, let me just go ahead and share my screen. We're just gonna jump right into things here just to kind of set the table, if you will. So I'm gonna share my screen, and where's my phone? Oh, there it is. So because I actually want to, because I imagine that most of you are like me, and you probably do most of your interactions with whatever on a smartphone of some kind. So I am just going to display my personal smartphone here on my MacBook, and then we will get going, and then I'll kind of just walk you through how to like think about that. Did I not type this in right? There we go. All right, come on, thing. This was okay. There we go. There we go. Now we're working. All right, so here's my iPhone. So standard iPhone screen. So just first thing to call out here is just like with any other app, like Instagram, or I'm sorry, Facebook. Instagram's a bad example because Instagram is not really supported on like a browser. But like you can see the various apps here on like LinkedIn, YouTube, or whatever. Like they all have their correlates that you can get on like a standard web browser, like if you're using Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or something like that. So they're like in terms of using these AI services, it doesn't like you're not going to get necessarily a wildly different experience. Now I will call out like there are some features that are exclusive to like use it, like going on the web or whatever. But I just want to show you like, so this is the ChatGPT app as you open it up. I am logged in here. You don't necessarily have to be a logged in user, and we'll talk about like the various like payment plans for all like these modeling services. So just for context, I am a ChatGPT Plus member, which is like the average, the mid tier. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but anyway, so this is the interface that you'll first pop up with, and you can see that it gives kind of some suggestions on like how to use this service. So you can see as I scroll down here, you can see that I can create a morning routine to boost my productivity. But what I want to call out here first and foremost is you see at the bottom there where it says message ChatGPT. This is obviously where we can place in our input, and when we mean input here. In the context of generative AI, well, I'm even getting ahead of myself there. Well, we'll talk about the difference about what generative AI versus like traditional AI is here in a little bit. But anyway, so we can just open this up down here, and we can just type in whatever we're kind of curious about. So I'm gonna say, like I mentioned, I used my ChatGPT to help me fix my toilet not too long ago. So when it comes to this input field here. We refer to this in the generative AI community as a prompt. So because you are essentially prompting the AI model, telling you what you want to do, or like what the results that you get back from it, or you might call that the output. Technically speaking, like in the AI community, we call that completion. I don't really hear people use that verbiage so much in like the everyday community, so I'm just going to refer to like this as like our input field, and then anything else we get as like our outputs. So the thing to keep in mind about these models is the more details that you can give them, the better. So if you think of like a traditional search engine, the way that works is like it's looking for keywords and metadata and etc. And so like you may have been trained when using a traditional search engine to like really hone in on the keywords, which means that whatever you're typing into like your Google interface or whatever is going to be rather minimal. The opposite, it's kind of the opposite for generative AI. You actually want to be more intentional with like being specific about what you want it to output. So if I were to just say generically say I need help fixing my toilet, as such, you will see I'm going to get some response back, but it's not necessarily going to fix my issue. And ChatGPT sort of recognized that here. It recognized that I was not specific enough with what I was going on with my what my issue is, and therefore it doesn't know how to guide me the best. And so like with these like a ChatGPT or these other generative AI models, you can continue on this conversation here as if you were having a conversation, like texting another friend or another family member or whatnot. You can continue on this conversation. So I'm going to continue on here and say, after I flush the toilet, the water does seem to fill back in the upper portion of the tank. However, the water is filling back very, very slowly. So this was the specific issue that I was having, and what was going on is like, so the way that a toilet works is like when you flush, it's a purely mechanical device. So like when you flush the toilet, there's all this water that's up in the back, and it rushes to get the excrement out of there. And so then after like you flush, then like when that water level in the back tank is down, then it needs to refill back up for the next use. And so when it fills back slowly like that, then that means you just have to wait a lot longer between uses of the toilet. And so you can see here, it's telling me that I should check the supply, like a couple different steps, like if I should check the supply valve and clean the fill valve or whatever. And so like I could go on here and to get like better results, but like basically I would continue to have this conversation back and forth here, and I was able to land on, okay, here's what I think the root cause of the issue really is, and like here was the way to fix it. And I was able to basically solve my problem with a $10 part and one little tool, like nothing that I needed to call a repairman for. So that's just one just a very, very, very high level introduction to what ChatGPT is. All right, I'll see you next weekend. Bye. I'm just kidding. That's just the introduction here. So all right, so there are some, like, that is the, like, if you just want to get up and going with ChatGPT, like that it is as simple as doing that. But I want to get into more of some of the, like, how to think about ChatGPT, if you will, because like I think what you're going to find is that your best experience is just going to be trial and error, like just trying things out and see what works and see what doesn't work. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my iPhone screen for a minute and just go back to my Mac screen, because I want to talk about how pricing kind of works for these services. And again, we're fixated on ChatGPT, but the other services are rather similar. So this is the pricing page for ChatGPT specifically. And so you can see we have 3 tiers now. We have the free tier, we have the plus tier, and we have the pro tier. Now it's going to be kind of hard to see because my face is in the way a little bit, but so free tier naturally is free. But with a free tier, you are extremely limited in what you can do. And so the interesting thing, and we'll talk about like these different model variants here in a minute, and transparently how confusing they can be. Like, I understand them just because I'm a nerd, but like the naming conventions on what OpenAI specifically gave here for these models is lacking. And by the way, if you're not familiar, OpenAI is the company that creates and maintains ChatGPT. Okay, so anyway, so what the free tier offers is basically like, and again, we'll talk about more about what these models mean, but it offers access to like the lowest tier model. So that's what GPT-4o Mini is. You can do internet search. We'll talk more about internet search a little bit. We'll talk about, and then I guess there's limited access to some of these higher tier models. And when I mean limited access, I mean it's basically like a quota of how many times you can ask questions to one of these models. And I don't have specific. I'm sure that the details are maybe on here. In fact, they might be in here on like what those specific quota things are. Okay, so yeah, you can see, well, okay, this is all just ChatGPT Plus, but you can see for ChatGPT Plus, like some of the specific quota things here. And really what all that is like, the nice part about that, like ChatGPT specifically, is like you pay this flat fee, and like let's say you actually do hit your quotas, like it's not like you're gonna start getting paid like they're gonna start like overcharging you or whatever. You just simply lose access to be able to continue do what you're doing until your quota resets. Okay, so that's the free level. And the nice thing about the free level as well is that you originally you did have to be a logged in authenticated user in order to use the free version. However, now they've actually added an ability to use ChatGPT specifically without being logged in at all. So if I come over to this tab, so this is just another interface of ChatGPT just in the web. It's the exact same thing that we were looking at on my iPhone here a little bit ago. It's just that I'm logged out now. You can see that I'm logged out by there's no login thing here. And I can ask questions. So if I were to just ask, what do I want to ask? What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? And you Monty Python fans out there will understand the reference. And again, I am logged out here, and it is, but I'm still able to invoke the model. Now, the one thing that's, again, kind of confusing here, and you'll see a difference here, is when we're actually logged in, up at the top left here, you can see this ChatGPT thing with the dropdown. This is the dropdown where you would actually select which model we're using. So I actually don't know which model is being used here. I anticipate that it's using 4o Mini, which is, again, their ChatGPT's lowest tier model. And yeah, well, I'm getting ahead of myself again. But anyway, so this is where you would select your other models. It's just that whenever you are not logged in or not not a paying user, you can see here that it's just trying to get me to log in. So by default, I don't know what model is being used here, but if you just wanted to go like and test out ChatGPT without creating an account and without having to pay anything, you are absolutely able to do that through the interface here. All right, so let me come back to the tiers. So what do you get whenever you start actually paying money? So you have your two level of tiers, like, and so for the longest time it was just the plus tier, the plus tier that you pay $20 a month. So you, as it notes here, you get everything in free. You get some of the standard advanced voice mode stuff, and we'll talk about that. But I'm not sure how much I'll actually be able to like successfully demo the advanced voice mode just on the stream here. And then we have access to some of the more advanced models that have come out more recently. Limited access to be able to do their video generation, and I did a whole like thing on the Sora and video generation in another stream. I'm not gonna recover that in this stream today. All you need to know for that is like I think it's too soon. So what the idea here is that like you could provide a little bit of text and we'll like create a video clip for you. That's but like the video clip is like if you're a ChatGPT Plus user, I think you can only make it up to 15 seconds long, and there's no audio associated to it. And the quality of the video generation is pretty bad. So all that to say, like, you know, I'm optimistic about Sora for the future, but for now it's very lacking. So that's plus. And then more recently, just in the last month or so, they came out with this additional feature called ChatGPT Pro. And ChatGPT Pro is basically you get everything in plus, but like you have almost no quotas for anything. Like you do have quotas on like Sora, and I think you do have quotas on like some of the like the newest models. But like for example, their baseline model, this GPT-4o, is you have unlimited access to, and you can see you have the unlimited advanced voice mode and such. Now, again, this comes at the pretty penny of $200 a month. So I did buy 1 month of this. I personally did not find enough use out of it that I just went back to ChatGPT Plus myself. Okay. What do I want to cover here? Okay, so let's talk about what is generative AI? What is generative AI versus standard traditional AI, and why has the world necessarily exploded about AI just in like the last 3 years? Because AI is not a new concept. You all have seen movies out there and stuff, or TV shows, or are aware that people like data scientists or machine learning engineers exist. I have been a machine learning engineer myself for 5 years now, which predates when these models came out. So what is the difference necessarily then? So I want to highlight here with a model that I created, a traditional AI model created in a live stream series like 3 years ago, which is weird to say that it's been 3 years now. But anyway, what this model is a proprietary model that I created that basically I went through and tried to create a predictive model around like one of my I listened to this one podcast here where this one guy here, Kalen, he will give reviews on a movie, and so I wanted to see if I could use his all of his review data to see if I could build a predictive model here. And so in order to do that, because basically what like AI is trying to do, traditional AI and generative AI, is you're trying to give like this algorithm a bunch of data that represents some sort of pattern. That way it can essentially emulate that pattern going forward. So you can see here, this is the spreadsheet I was using to capture all of the data from like all these reviews and such. So he gives 2 different ratings. He gives like a 0 to 10 rating and then like a positive or like a thumbs up, thumbs down rating. And so like the idea here is with traditional AI is I feed all this information into the AI model, and then I can when I feed in a new model, or I'm sorry, a new movie to score, then it will give a predictive score of like what it expects based off of what it's seen before. So naturally, as you can kind of expect, this model is good for nothing except that. Like it can't, like this model can't do anything. It can't predict, like even though I call it the movie rating model, it's actually only good for this one individual here. I can't use it to predict my own ratings of a movie. I can't use it to predict your ratings of a movie. So this is very much a nuanced kind of model. Now there's still value in it though. So you can imagine like, this was a silly example that I just used for the streaming purposes here, but you can imagine like in a real business world context, like building these predictive models, like these traditional AI models, for a very, very intentional usage is still very much important. And that's one thing I do want to call out here is like, I think there's like this perception of like with these new generative AI models that it superseded everything that came before. And that's not the case. And I've explained this before in other streams, like generative AI, as cool as it is, and as helpful as it is, it's just another tool in the toolbox. We didn't necessarily toss out all the other traditional AI things when it came when generative AI rolled around. So let's talk more about generative AI then. So if traditional AI is building a very intentional model for a very intentional use case, it's interesting that ChatGPT takes the opposite approach. It takes the approach of, well, we want to find a pattern of like understanding our data here that can work for a ton of different use cases. And that's what I was starting to demonstrate. So like if this model here, it's not going to be able to help me fix my toilet. However, I can come back to here and I can, or ChatGPT here, and I can ask it stuff about Monty Python. I can ask it how to fix my toilet. I can ask it all sorts of things. And it's just the nature of how these models were built. Now, these AI models, these generative AI models like ChatGPT are extremely complex. So I'm not going to try to technically explain it that much, but just at a very high level, like what these models are doing is they're basically what I call, or what most people call next word predictors. Because I'm going to intentionally oversimplify this, but imagine I have a ton of information and it's just like you're trying to fill the last blank in a sentence. So like, let's say I have a sentence, in the morning, I like to drink blank. So whenever we actually train these predictive models, we would actually say, okay, I'm going to give you this thing as like in the morning, I like to I like to drink blank, and then I'm also going to give you what that blank would be filled with, so that way you can see how I would fill in that blank. So you might fill in that blank with the word coffee. Now again, I'm radically oversimplifying this, but if you imagine if we grab all the information across the public internet, across the last 2 decades, well, now we have a lot of different patterns that we can interact with, and a lot of things that these models are seeing. But again, there is a problem there a little bit, in the sense that these are next word predictors. So one big thing I want to call out here is that these, back to the whole idea of like the traditional AI thing, because these are largely next word predictors, I would be very leery about doing anything that is like mathematically oriented. So, and that is because simply there is no actual math that's actually happening under the hood here. So if I were to, I'm just going to refresh my screen here. So if I were to ask, what is 2 plus 2, it's going to get this right. What is 2 plus 2? But we have to ask ourselves the question, why does it get this right? And the reason, my anticipation, or why I think this gets this right, is because, again, we're training on the entire internet. We're seeing all of these things that people have said over time, and we know across the internet, everybody's saying 2 plus 2 equals 4. So it's seen this a number of different times. It didn't even, I would imagine no calculation was done here. However, if you were to, like, and there could actually be something that ChatGPT is doing behind the scenes now to help facilitate this. But if I were to say, what is this number times this number, then I would hope that it should get this wrong. Yeah, or okay, there, right there, it just admitted that it could not do this. And again, it's just because it can't. It's these are not mathematical models. And again, if I were, so I'm still logged out as like a free user here, and you could see here, like, log in to use and analyze data and charts for me. So services like ChatGPT, to get around this barrier of like, well, how do I do like this math stuff? What it'll do is, like, it, instead of like trying to use the AI model itself, behind the scenes, what is going on is it's probably running a little bit of code to actually do a calculation. So what the model will do is it'll produce the Python code or whatever sort of code it uses to do the calculation. Then it will do the calculation aside from the model, and then it'll give that answer back to the model or to return back to the user. But in this case, because we are a logged out user, we didn't get any sort of response. So I'm just curious. I've actually not tried this before. I am going to log in here. So I'm going to log in with my personal account. Okay, so now I'm logged in here. So if I were to ask the same question, what is the answer? We'll see what sort of answer we get. So you could see that it's doing a little bit of some sort of an analyzing here, and you could see that it actually does get this correct. But I'm curious, how did it get this correct? And you can see here that it looks like I was correct. It looks like, so this is Python code. Oh yeah, it actually does say this is Python code. And so what it basically did behind the scenes it recognized that I wanted some sort of mathematical calculation, and it did the mathematical calculation, but not as part of the AI. This was derived just by straight up code. All right, I feel like I'm starting to get too technical here, so I want to get back to something that like you all might value here. But now that we're logged in here, I guess I want to show that we now have the various selector options here. So this is what I was talking about, like with how OpenAI is unfortunate with their naming. Because to most people, these names don't mean anything. And even to me, like somebody who tries to keep up on the space, it is really hard now to try to like understand like what are all these various options doing and which one's the best for me. And so you could see in the subtext below these models, like they do try to give a little bit of an answering around like how you should be using these models, but it's still not super clear. So I guess in my mind, the way I think about these things is there's like 3 tiers of models, and there's the regular standard model. There is like a lower power version of the standard model, and then there's these more advanced models that are like used for advanced reasoning. And so you may, as I'm recording this, like the advanced reasoning stuff actually has become quite popular, especially as like this company called DeepSeek made waves a couple weeks ago with headlines, and we might talk about that a little bit. But anyway, so back to here, I would say for most people, GPT 4.0 is probably just fine. And so again, this is what I would call the standard tier model. Now, if the low tier model actually doesn't even show up on this list until you come over here. So the low tier model is this 4.0 mini. Now, we will talk. For your purposes, I don't think that you would ever, I can't imagine why you would ever want to select this one. There is a reason that this is still super valuable, and maybe I'll get to that toward the end of the stream. But anyway, so I actually have not tried this one yet. So this is a you can see it's got the beta tag on there. I believe that this is just like a capability where you can, like let's say that you could schedule a task where it says, get me the latest news headlines every single day. Maybe something like that. And then we have these O-level models that represent the more advanced reasoning models. And again, this is where it gets confusing as like which one is the most optimal for me. Like it gives like it gives a little bit of a reasoning, but like I don't know. I've personally just the only thing that I've found the best is just trying out multiple ones. So like let's say I wanted to use O1 here. So O1, this is like their current. Well, I guess not current. Like, well, what am I trying to say? It was their first deep reasoning model. Like they're coming out with model. They've come out with Model Sense. They're coming out with O3 soon. But anyway, this is the kind of you don't want to use the reasoning model unless you have a like real reason that you need something that it needs to reason through. So like for example, we talked about like how I used ChatGPT to fix my toilet. There's not really any reasoning that needs to go on there. That's just pretty straightforward regurgitation of facts. But let's say I wanted, so what I like to use these reasoning models for is to help me prepare with these streams and such. So I might use the reasoning model, say, I am preparing a live stream to demonstrate all the various features of ChatGPT. Can you help me come up with an itinerary? Oh my gosh. I can't spell oh my gosh. Is there a different word that I could use that's an itinerary so I'm not just like misspelling these things? A plan. Okay, a plan for or no, not plan, an outline for sharing various use cases of ChatGPT. I want to demonstrate things like advanced reasoning, internet search capabilities, and more. So this is where you will see here where it actually, depending on the topic, it's going to spend some time actually like going into a thinking mode. So you're not going to get a response necessarily right away. Now in this particular case, it ran just for a few seconds, but sometimes this can run upwards of 30 seconds, and it's just giving the AI model extra time to think about what you want to do. But for the most case, like if you're just trying to find standard information, like let's say you just want, I don't know, how like what's a good recipe for baking cookies, like you don't need the advanced reasoning. And in fact, I'll go as far to say like I would say 95% of the time, again, this is going to range from different person to different person. 95% of the time, you're not going to need the reasoning model. It's just because the thing that you need to keep in mind with these AI models is we try to fit like right use here, like and from the ChatGPT perspective, because like you pay a flat fee, like if you're on the plus tier you pay $20, or if you're on the higher tier you pay $200. Like this is not as much of a big deal. The only thing you got to keep in mind here is like like I actually ran into this issue myself last week. So I was using this O3 Mini High here, and O3 Mini High is one of their newer models and has like a low quota associated to it right now. And so if you're not careful and you're just asking asking random questions, then you can burn through your quota. And again, like the worst thing that's going to happen is you're just going to run out of quota. You're not going to get charged extra, but it's still not great. Like in the sense that like what if I was meaning to use 4.0 the entire time, and then I really needed the O1 model for some reason, and I ran out of my quota? Well, that's a bummer. Okay, so that is the various models. So let's talk about a couple gotchas when it comes to these models. So one of these gotchas you might run into is this concept that we call a hallucination. And so what is a hallucination? So again, these models are next word predictors, meaning that they're just trying to find the most probabilistic next word. And it doesn't have information necessarily about the entire world. It has information about the public internet, but it doesn't have information necessarily about like your workplace or your school or even anything in your house. So if you can ask questions all day long, it's just that, and you won't get responses all day long, but some of those questions might be wrong. And so that's what we refer to as hallucination. So for example, if I were to come in here, and it may actually, like ChatGPT specifically has actually gotten smart enough to know, like to not give false answers. So for example, if I were to ask, who was the winner of the 2026 Super Bowl? Now, if obviously we are in 2025 as I record this, so the 2026 Super Bowl hasn't even happened, and we don't even know who's playing. Now, in older versions of the model, it would actually, before AWS, or no, I'm sorry, not AWS, before OpenAI caught on to like some of the hallucination concerns, it would actually say, oh yeah, the Chiefs won, or I don't know. I'm not a football guy, obviously. So when I run this here, it should tell me here that it doesn't know who's winning. Oh, it looks like I did that thing I told you not like to be careful of it, which is to be careful of making sure that you are using the right model. And so I actually accidentally have the reasoning model on here, and for some reason I don't know why it spent 13 seconds thinking about that. But it did correctly give an answer of like that this was not correct. But like in early days of the model, like one of the examples that I used to use was, so these models here are trained at a snapshot in time. So I believe like that these latest O1 models and such are trained on data up to like October 2023 or something. But like the very first version of ChatGPT that came out, GPT 3.5 Turbo was the name of that model. It was trained on data up to September 2021, and so naturally Queen Elizabeth was still alive at that point. And so if you were to go ask the model, when did Queen Elizabeth pass away, and like late 20, when ChatGPT came out, it would tell you she has not passed away. She is still alive, which is incorrect. And it's just it's just a matter of like at that point the model was not exposed to the data, letting the model know that Queen Elizabeth had passed away in September 2022. So if I were to come now and ask that question, when did Queen Elizabeth pass away? All right. So you can see now it answers the question correctly as September 8, 2022. But the thing I want to call out here is that like if you are trying to get at very recent information, you need to be very careful about how you approach that. So what do I mean by that? So for example, I'm trying to think of a news headline. So just yesterday, as I record this, OpenAI released another new model they call GPT 4.5. We're not going to cover that in this stream, but let's say I wanted to learn more of the news headlines around GPT 4.5. So I can go in here and I say, can you tell me about this new ChatGPT 4.5 model? Now, I want to highlight something here is you'll notice there's a couple buttons down here, and one of them is this internet search button. And so in more recent times, like when ChatGPT first came out, there was no internet search capability here. So at best, what we would get here is a response saying, like, I don't know anything about ChatGPT 4.5. And so I'm hoping that this works because I think ChatGPT's actually been updated to where, like, even if you don't click this button, that if it doesn't know the answer, like, it sort of like pseudo clicks this button for you on its behalf. So like, let me go ahead and click this button here. and hopefully it won't. Yeah, it did that thing where I didn't want it to do it. So you can, I don't know if you saw that there very briefly. It did not know the answer, so it went ahead and invoked the internet search anyway. But that's another thing you need to be very extremely careful about. Is there's a lot of companies out there that right now that are building their own internal chat service just so that like all the data can be retained within their walls, but they may not have like an internet search capability associated to like this. So you can see here, it got this answer correct because it did an internet search. However, if it didn't have, apparently I can't even simulate that. I was hoping to be able to simulate like what would happen like without an internet search, but apparently ChatGPT is just intelligent enough to try to like basically force your hand, if you will. What other tools here I want to show? One of the more recent tools that they added here that I want to call it here as well is they added this new deep research button. And the way how I understand this is it's basically like you give it a research topic that you want to like research on. So like let's say you're a geneticist, like, and you want to do research on epigenetics, then you would type in something and you click this button and it would like go across the internet and look at reputable sources on things like Archive or whatever and grab research papers for you and such. This, as you can see as I hover over this is extremely limited in capacity for ChatGPT Plus users because this is like very much a new feature for ChatGPT. I think it just came out like a couple weeks ago. Okay, so let's go back into like thinking about more specific use cases because so one specific use case I actually hear quite a bit is like I grew up in a spiritual community. I grew up in the Christian church and such, and still have very strong ties to a lot of people who are deeply religious and spiritual. So like let's say that you're a Christian and you want to you're going through some sort of specific issue and you want to see what like the Bible has to say about that. So you could say, what is the specific issue I'm going through? I am having a tough time with I'm going to say my friend. I'm actually not having a tough time with anything. I'm good. My friend is going through a rough patch with his job right now. I don't know, some random thing. Can you share with me some Bible verses or passages that I can recommend to him for encouragement? So, and what we'll do, I'm not sure if it's going to use the internet or not for this. So you could see, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes when it does or does not use the internet. Usually, with ChatGPT, you can see it'll do like a thing where it says searching the internet, and then it will also give you the sources. But you could see here, I believe that it did not invoke the internet here. So, but you could see it's actually grabbing out passages from the Bible with the references back associated with it. Now, the reason I wanted to call this out here specifically, and the reason I'm using the Bible as an example, is you might be asking, well, what if I want to ask questions like, let's say I'm reading another random book, just any other random book. Can I ask questions of that random book? And my answer is probably not. So you need to keeping in mind that when these AI models were trained, they were trained across the entire internet. The reason it knows the Bible better is because, the internet is chock full of people talking about the Bible. And I'm not just referring to the Bible. They're like, think about any other popular books, like any other religious text, like the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, any of those, or even some more modern popular books, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. These books that have been widely discussed by many people, or even Harry Potter, things like that. What you're not going to have as good luck like if you were trying to ask questions about a lesser known book or a brand new book. So, and additionally, OpenAI has also put up guardrails here to ensure that you're not asking for things that you should that would necessarily constitute like a breach of what am I trying to say? A breach of copyright. And what I mean by that is so if I come in here and say, give me the full first chapter of the first Harry Potter book, it should tell me that I wonder if I'm gonna get flagged for this, because if you do enough bad, that's the other thing I should highlight here. If you try to abuse the service, like if you try to ask it how to do criminal things too many times or anything like that, you will get flagged. And I don't know how. So I've gotten flagged accidentally a few times, just for some random things. Like it was just like random flukes. I actually don't know what happens if you try to abuse this service too many times. I imagine that they probably just kick you off the platform or whatever. But you can see here, yeah, it refused to answer, and the same holds true actually for image generation. So we haven't really talked about image generation, but with these generative AI models, mostly they manifest in the form of you give it a bit of text and it will produce a bit of text back. However, generative AI is not limited to that. We did talk a little bit about Sora, where you can give a little bit of text and Sora will produce a video. And so I want to talk about DALL-E for here, because DALL-E is their, you can see here, is their way of creating an image here. And so it will use AI. We'll feed it some text and it will produce an image back for us. But there are some gotchas associated here. So let's say I say, create for me an icon representing a teacher trying to teach others about generative AI. So this is a generic sort of question, and you'll see here that it's going to produce an appropriate response back for us. All right, it'll take here just a second. And generally speaking, when you ask generic questions like this, you get decent results back. However, what I want to call out here, there are two specific gotchas. The number one gotcha is here. Let me see if I can make this bigger without. There we go. Okay, so the number one gotcha is DALL-E specifically is really not great with text, and you can see that very clearly here. For some reason, it's very smudged. I've also noticed specifically here, from zoomed out, this looks fine. But if you look at the circles over here and you really zoom in on them, they're not quite circles. They're a little bit oblong and a little bit and this one here is a little bit janky here. You can't. So in my experience, I've not gotten a whole lot of great value out of using DALL-E. Now, to be clear, there are other services out there that will do a better job at image generation, but they're questionable in their practices. And what I mean by that is so ChatGPT is intentionally not trying to produce any sort of copyrighted material. And so let me try to produce some copyrighted material. So let's say I want to create an image, and I want to say, show me an image of Mickey Mouse eating a hamburger, which obviously he likes hot dogs, so this is no bueno as is. All right, so I'm actually surprised that it's even trying to do anything at all, because generally speaking, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there we go. So it told me that it won't do that. Now, ChatGPT won't, but there are other services that will. So if I were to go to Grok, for example, grok.com. So Grok, this is Elon Musk's company, XAI. So they recently have released the Grok model. So I'm going to sign in with my X account here. Continue with X. Authorize app. And I just want to show you, I'm going to try to do the same thing. I'm going to take this precisely the same prompt. So show me an image of Mickey Mouse eating a hamburger. Where is the image generation thing? Grok 3, create images, draw me an image of Mickey Mouse eating a hamburger. So we'll give it here a second just to kind of see it work itself out. And there you go. You can start to see some of the ears. We'll give it here another second, and yeah, that is, the one on the right here is a little bit scary, but the one on the left here, that's straight up Mickey Mouse. And so that's where things get strange in terms of the image generation space. And we are still, in terms of legislation with AI, we're still very much in the early days. I'm personally not aware of like the specific legislation around like image generation. However, I know a lot of people are cautious about this, knowing that like something could come up about this. But just be aware, like this is one of these strange things about these various services. Sometimes like they'll give you exactly what you want, like these copyrighted images, but then like ChatGPT here is taking like the safer approach and probably the more correct approach in my opinion. Like I don't know, like I would be very cautious about like touting around like, hey, my model can produce copyrighted material. Like that would make me uncomfortable. But anyway, so you just can't produce those sorts of things. But like but you can produce other like generic images. But again, I want to highlight here just like that it's just not very good with text. So if I say create for me a logo of a banana wearing sunglasses. I don't know why I thought of that of all things. Well, actually, no, I do know. I have a little Lego guy over here right under my camera, and I was just looking at him. So he's got a little banana Lego guy over here. So, all right, create for me a logo wearing bananas, and below the image, place some text that says Banana Man. Banana Man. And you will see here, it's probably not going to do a very good job. At least in my experience, it doesn't do a very good job with text. So we'll give it here a minute to continue generating. And oh, wow. I'm actually like pleasantly surprised by that. Like, so I knew it would do a good job on the logo itself. But like the text actually here looks really good. So, but again, I was hoping to simulate how like bad it can be, and I kind of did a little bit here with my other image, where this generative AI icon image. You can see here that the text just didn't come out well, and this is more like this experience. This what I'm seeing here is more my experience than the other image where it actually kind of got it right. Okay, so. All right, so that is ChatGPT holistically. Let me check out my notes here. So you might be wondering, because we reviewed Grok over here a little bit, and then we also, we touched on Grok here, that is, and then we also have ChatGPT. You might be wondering which service is right for me. Because you might, in the early days of ChatGPT, I think people were I think the answer to that question is the best service is the one with the highest quality of model. However, we've very quickly gotten to this point where, in my opinion, these models are more or less on the same level. I recognize that there are differences, there are nuances where these models can perform better than one another. However, for general purpose tasks like the ones that I've been showing you today, you could use ChatGPT, you could use Anthropic, and these other things. With all about the same experience in terms of the quality of the model. So my opinion is in terms of which service do you want to land on is it's all about user experience. Is which service offers the best features for what you are interested in. And so for me personally, that is ChatGPT these days. Now actually, in the last year, it was this other service called Perplexity, but largely a good reason for that is this internet search capability that we were demonstrating here earlier. This was just added to ChatGPT maybe 4 months ago. So this was actually a relatively recent addition. And so for me personally, I really need this button, especially for my work, because with my work, I've done stuff. Sorry, I was just looking at that. I didn't know Gene Hackman died. Anyway, so distracted. But I need this. So again, because these models are trained at a snapshot in time, I'm working with these Python libraries and such called Lane Chain and whatever. And these are so new that unless I have this internet search capability, I'm going to get back hallucinations just because the documentation and how that software is just is today is just constantly being updated. And so that's why I was a Perplexity user for the longest time, is because Perplexity, that was their selling point for a long time. Now, because these other services didn't have the internet search integration. obviously now ChatGPT's been updated. You can even see over here Grok's been updated. So now, no, I guess it went out the gate with internet search capabilities. So, but like then you have to consider as well the other features and such. And so I've been sort of highlighting some of the features of ChatGPT, but you might also be considering like some of the what do you want to call it? The vibes, if you will, of each platform. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is like, so over here, the vibe over here is like, this is very much like we want to be productive. We want to be while being safe. Safe in the sense of like, we don't want to produce copyrighted materials. We don't want to produce anything that is necessarily dangerous or harmful. Elon Musk has taken a different approach with Grok here. So Grok I've actually not tried this. There is an advanced voice mode now in Grok called Aura, and it features what is called the unhinged mode. And the unhinged mode, I'm not even going to try to display it here, is just like what it sounds like. Just imagine this AI model just cursing you out like a sailor. And so maybe that's your vibe. Maybe your vibe is you want that more rawness, if you will. Or I think another upsell of Grok specifically is that because Elon Musk now owns Twitter, I think that it also can search specifically Twitter posts and such. So that maybe that is your more of your vibe. But maybe you like, but I actually like the other features. So even to be fair to Grok and the other model, like it is still like in progress in terms of like the service. It just doesn't have as nearly as many features in my opinion as ChatGPT does. So like another one of these features that is exclusive to ChatGPT that I really like is this thing called Canvas. So what is Canvas? So let's say my wife right now, she is a strong volunteer at the school, and so they are preparing a teacher appreciation week here in the next month, and so they're already good to go. Like they already have all their plans and such. However, let's pretend here that I am trying to create like a bulletin, if you will, that I'm going to share out with everybody at the school, saying like, hey, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. Here's what we're doing for our teachers here. This is where something like Canvas can come really in handy. So how do we actually activate Canvas here? I don't even remember. Oh, there it is right there. So I'm going to go to Canvas. And so what this is actually going to do is it's going to pop open this interface here, and I'm going to pop it up on the right. And so over here, it looks like there's just nothing but like this empty white space. But what this is that it's actually like a working ground for your document while you can still have your conversation with the AI. So what do I mean by that? So I'm going to come off here on the left again. And apologies, my logo is going to be away in a little bit here, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to read. So let's say I am helping my wife with a teacher appreciation week at our elementary school. Can you help me to draft a bulletin with that I can share with all the faculty and students about various activities we're going to do to help appreciate our teachers each day. All right, and so what you're going to see off on the right here is it's going to start populating this bulletin, and then we can start directly interacting with it. Okay, so we'll give it a second here to complete generating. But yeah, so you could see that it is giving us exactly what we want. But I'm stalling for a little bit because I want to show how you can interact with this further and get like more refined edits here. So you can see that this is pretty, this is not a bad job by any means. And I didn't give very specific information, so it kind of just gave its own sort of like expectation here on like what or not expectation, but like its own sort of first draft, if you will. And yes, so I see that the chat and the by the way, I'm taking questions across LinkedIn and YouTube. I see the thing in the chat from Kevin there. I believe that this is a good point. Like there is memory limitations with this Canvas. So if you try to use Canvas too heavily, like if you're trying to write like a novel or something, I think you might run into issues. But this is still good for like blog posts or wiki documents or building out bulletins like this. So let's say I come down here and I'm looking at this, and so actually at our school, we actually do not allow homemade treats. So I'm actually going to highlight this part here and say, can you update this to something else? Our school does not allow homemade treats. And what it will do is it will update just in place that specific thing here. So it's highlighting there, and now it's rewriting. And yeah, so our school does allow prepackaged and store-bought snacks. So you can see that it did that just appropriately. And let's say, and you can update just certain portions of the document. You can update the whole thing at once. And then if I move my face out of the way, let me move my face out of the way, you can actually see a pencil icon down here that will actually kind of do the same sort of thing for you. It's just like it's got some preset options in here. So like let's say like for example, I want to adjust the length. So let's say I want to make it a little bit longer, or not longest, but a little bit longer. So I'm going to hover that up here. I'm going to click on that button, and what you will see here is that this canvas interface will refresh to have more or less the same content, but like in a padded out form. So we'll give it a second here to complete its generation. And to my knowledge, no other like model provider service offers this sort of functionality like Canvas. To be clear here, I'm focusing on like the model providers of like these services that actually are like the OpenAIs or the Anthropics, the companies that are actually building the models. There are plenty of other services out there that are making use of like these models to support their own things. So you've probably seen, it seems like everybody and their brother, every company out there is trying to figure out how to bake these services into their products. So there may be another service out there that is like Canvas. I imagine there probably is. But in terms of like Grok, Anthropic, ChatGPT, or Perplexity, ChatGPT is the only one that I'm aware of that has like this Canvas sort of like capability. All right, so we got a longer one here, and so then we can come back down to our button again, and so we could even say like this is my favorite button, the add emoji button. So you can see here, I just want to add it on words, I want to add it on sections, I want to add it on lists. I'm going to add it on words, and so it will dynamically. It's not going to add it to every single word because that would just, of course, get absurd. It's just going to I started to say that, and then right out the bat, it starts giving emojis for everything. It's going to do its best to try to see when to insert emojis where is most appropriate. So as it's continuing to do its thing here, then we can continue to view the output here. All right, so let's give it a second here to complete generating. Now, the one thing I guess when I want to highlight while it's continuing to generate here is you'll notice that we still have this interface off on the left. So as this is completing here, we can still ask questions, but not necessarily update the document here. So like let's say I guess it's still completing. All right, just about done here. Okay, so now that it's finished completing, I can ask the question, what do you think about trying to do some sort of weekend activity as well? Would that be a bad idea? So I'm asking the question here. So, and what you should see here is I get a response directly here off on the left because I'm not asking to update the document. I'm just asking questions, generally speaking, on something to think about here. So let's say I like this idea here. Like let's say I like one of these ideas. We'll just pick the first one here. I like the picnic idea. So I'm going to say I like the picnic idea. Can you add that to our bulletin? We should see off here on the right. You can see here it's kind of gone dimmed a little bit to indicate that we are again showing or that or it's demonstrating that the interface is refreshing. So we'll give it here another second, and we should see here our stuff again. That added a lot of emojis, almost too many emojis. I like emojis, but this is a little bit overkill. So, all right, so we will give it a second, and hopefully we should see our Saturday picnic coming up here. So there we go. There's our Saturday picnic right there. And again, so the one thing, so ChatGPT is smart enough to recognize here that we haven't given enough information to like necessarily be able to complete this. So you can see here, for example, it's just giving empty brackets and such here that we can go in that's, I guess, the other thing I wanted to say here is like we've demonstrated here how we can highlight things and then ask the AI to update it. Well, we can actually just update this interface directly ourselves. So if I wanted to change here, I guess my face is in the way. Let me move my face out of the way again. Like if I wanted to change the school name in here, I don't even need to use AI. I could just go in here and say Cedar Ridge Elementary School. That's the name of my kids at school. And then I could go down here and I could update the appropriate contact name, email, and such as well. So that is one like specific exclusive feature to ChatGPT that I really like. Another feature that I like, if you are a paid user, it will remember history about you to an extent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because I do want to share my history, but I want to make sure that I don't have anything necessarily sensitive in there. All right, so let me go and check my own personal history, settings, personalization, manage memories. All right, is there anything in here that I would not want anybody in the public to see? No, it does not appear so. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share it. So if you are a paid user of ChatGPT, as you have a conversation with the model over time, it will remember various facts about you. So that way, if you are having a future conversation, it can remember other sorts of things. So like, for example, you can see down here that it's specific, like this probably was generated whenever I was doing something that I was helping out with my high school guys last week in terms of Java. But it remembered that my personal laptop is an M1 MacBook Pro and I like to use VS Code. And I like to use iTerm too. And you can see in here that I could go and delete anything here. So you might be wondering, well, how does ChatGPT, like, how do I know when ChatGPT necessarily adds a memory here, whatever? So if we go to a new conversation here, it's intentional about like if you use certain verbiage about like this is something about me, then it's almost like there's some sort of trigger that fires on the back end to let it know like, hey, maybe we should remember this thing. So let's say, and this is true, I really, really love Chicago style pizza. What is the best Chicago style pizza I can get in Bloomington, Illinois? And I'm going to turn on this internet search capability here. So what it should see if I triggered this the way I wanted it to. Okay, apparently not. All right, never mind. Let me try a different way here because what I was hoping to see here is this little icon. But this is another thing I guess is kind of nice to show specifically about ChatGPT is they're really working on building out the user experience here. So they've added these special functionalities, like if it knows that like I'm asking about like ChatGPT, for example, or I'm sorry, if I'm asking about a specific location within a town, it will produce this map widget, which is the so this is a map of Bloomington for you folks who are not in Bloomington, and it gives like various examples of things that might be good for like Chicago style pizza, which is a bit ironic because I've never known Tobin's to serve Chicago style pizza, nor have I known Luca. I've known Rosati's to serve Chicago style pizza, and I just random note, we did have a Giordano's in town up until like 3 weeks ago, and I am really upset that they closed. So if you didn't know that, yes, they are closed now. Big disappointment. All right, so let me see if I can get the memory thing to fire anyway. I'm just going to say, without an internet search, I really, really love deep Chicago style deep dish pizza. And let's see if it's going to try to remember it this time, like a memory updated. Yeah, there we go. That's what I wanted to fire right there. Is you can see this memory icon, this memory updated icon. Oops, sorry. Really loves deep dish pizza. So if I go to my memories, and let's say for whatever reason, well, actually, let me try something different because I'm okay with it remembering that about me. Let's say you can actually tell it to call you a specific name. So I would say, from now on, call me Big Dog. So let's see if it remembers. Hopefully all right, so let me go to a new chat here. So this is a new chat. So let me go ahead and say, yo, what's up, ChatGPT? How ya doing today? So I want to see if it calls me Big Dog. Do you remember what my name is? Oh my gosh, it's not referencing it appropriately. Oh my gosh. All right. So I personally not tried to do this name thing. But like I do know people that I actually met a woman earlier this week that she told me that like she loves interacting with ChatGPT so much as a friend that she asked if ChatGPT or not, well, I guess she was using a different service, but she asked the model like, "Hey, can I give you a name?" And so the model was a little bit hesitant at first, but then the model eventually offered the name of Sage for itself. And then she told me that she gave it a different nickname that she wanted to call her. So now whenever she has interactions with her service, it remembers that like, oh, the AI, this person likes to call the AI model, refer to the AI model by the name of Sage, and then it likes to be this individual likes to be referred to by this nickname of fill in the blank. I'm not going to say who this individual was, but let's say for whatever reason, like I don't want that in there. I don't want to be called Big Dog. So what I can do here then is I just go into the settings, personalization, go into the custom instructions here. Oh, I'm sorry, not custom instructions. Although we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll go down to manage memories, and you can see here wants to be called Big Dog from now on. I'm just gonna delete that. Now, the one thing I don't like about memory that's a little bit strange to me is that like you can't go and add things yourself. Like I can't update this interface to say here really loves deep dish Chicago style pizza. This is just something that only gets added by ChatGPT as it sees fit. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my voice there. But I guess it is important to note that here that we do have our custom instruction capability. So, oh wow, that's interesting. I did not realize this was here. Like, because I personally don't make use of things like this. This is actually really interesting. I had never seen this screen before. So like, let's say, I've never. Wow, I'm kind of stunned that this got past me. So I'm gonna say, what do? I am a hot dog vendor. Well, what? So witty, charming, Gen Z. I don't know. Loves pizza and cheeseburgers. Okay. All right. So and then we can set all these advanced capabilities. Okay. So save. Now, I'm gonna see what happens here. Yo, Chat GPT, what's up today? No. So you can see here now it's kind of like giving like a weird vibe, and I can imagine here that I could even go back into these settings, and do the personalization, go back into the custom instructions and say, give all responses in the voice of Jar Binks from Star Wars. All right, so if I go and save this here, all right, let's do a new chat. Yo, Chat GPT, how are you doing today? Okay, for some reason it didn't accept that. Tell me that again, except in the voice of Jar Jar Binks from Star Wars. Expect. Oh, meant to say accept, but you can see like it does. Like it's just like these generative AI models just do an astounding job at like just really nuanced, silly things like this. Like because Jar Jar Binks was by no means a major character in the Star Wars universe, but it still does a very good job at emulating him. But so I'm gonna go. Let me go back to my settings here and clear out all these things. But something I want to call out here is like maybe what like let's say you want specific custom instructions, but you only want them on for like a specific like project that you're working on or something like that. So that is another thing that ChatGPT has recently come out with. I'm just gonna delete all those preferences out. All right, and that is this idea of projects. So over here off on the left, you can see that I've got all my historical chats here. You can see all the chats that we've done in the thing here in our session today. But this was a new, more recent feature that was added by ChatGPT. And there are other, like Perplexity has something that is similar to this. Grok, I do not believe has this capability, but is basically, it's a way to group your chats together. And so, for example, I am building for future streams. I am building a custom data set that I like using generative AI here. And so what I did was, it's called the generic corp data set. But what I did here is I started by first generating like a fake history about generic corp, generically speaking. And then what I want to do from here is I want to be able to like generate things like, what are some proprietary tools that maybe generic corp has, or what is an employee handbook for that generic corp has. So instead of like, imagine like it would get really annoying to try to have to copy and paste this every single time to give as context to the model to know like, hey, this is the fake company that I'm trying to build. So what we can do here is we can create a project, and then we can actually add specific instructions here. So what I actually did was I took this bio here and asked some, copied it and pasted it into the specific instructions for this project. So when I go and ask questions going forward, it's going to have this all as context. So let's say, can you help me? You come up with some various policy documents that might support the overall organization. So I'm not even like typing any of all that other stuff, but you can see here the response that I'm going to get back. It should be actually very tailored to this generic corp thing. Now, the one thing I've noticed is that sometimes it will not pick up the instructions appropriately. And I think that's what is happening here. I don't actually see it referencing generic corp at all. And maybe, yeah, like that's just a gotcha. Like it's like, I hope that OpenAI recognizes that this is an issue and that they can fix this. Because in my mind, it actually did not work here. And let me see. When this is done, I'm going to ask which company we're talking about here. And so if it didn't pick up that context right there, then it should not be able to give the answer correct. What company are we talking about here? And maybe it did. Maybe it did get these right. And maybe it just, these are so generic that like, that's why I can't tell, but we'll find out here in a second. Oh yeah, there we go. So it actually did pick it up right. It's just that these are so generic that, well, I named it generic corp, but these are so generic that I couldn't tell. But it actually did pick these up appropriately. But you can see here, this is actually a more representative example. You can see that I just asked, what are some internal software tools that generic corp might use to support their own internal operations? And it gave me like all these different things, and it actually did appropriately reference the fact that like it is a fake Fortune 500 company. So I really like projects for that reason, and it's actually just a good way to organize your prompts in general. So like, for example, I like the next stream. Well, I guess this is not a good example, but well, just for a heads up, the next stream is going to be on DSP, and that'll probably come the next week or so. I do have instructions here, but like, let's say like I did a bunch of questions around because I did the stream last week around Vaden, which is something I was helping out my high school mentees with. But you can see here, I didn't add any instructions. I just used this as like a mechanism to help me group my chats well. So now you can see here, as I ask new questions to this specific project, if I need to get back to a specific chat and I know it's related to this project, I just go into the project and look for it. So you could see, and then reference things that way. So big fan of projects. This is a new feature that was just added as part of like the 12 days of Christmas, like 2 months ago. And so between Canvas and projects and Search GPT, that was what flipped me back from going, because like I said, I was a Perplexity customer primarily, and now I'm a ChatGPT customer primarily. It's because of these more recent additions that they've added. So let me look at my notes again here. So we covered the various tiers, covered various models, when you need reason, when you don't. We covered the internet connection stuff. We talked about math. We talked about books. We talked, okay, I think we have covered all of my notes. I guess to round us out here, I do want to call out a couple other things. One thing that like about a year ago, OpenAI was really touting big time was this idea of a GPT store, which don't even get me started on the naming of these things. So in case you're not aware, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is a technical term. That is very specifically associated to this very specific concept. So they introduced this thing called the GPT store, and the GPT store is not a GPT by any means, which is what the naming just drives me nuts. But it is all these different like things that are tools that people can develop to help like get better results and such from ChatGPT. To be 100% transparent, I think I've maybe looked at this twice. I like and even these days, obviously it's still around, but OpenAI really isn't talking about this as much. It just nenever caught on, and I'm not 100% sure why. Like, well, for at least for me personally, I just found nothing in here that was really also all that helpful. And maybe that's just me. Maybe there are people out there that find some value out of these GPTs, but I think by and large, I think it's not just me. I think like it is. There's a lot of people out there that don't find value out of these GPTs. So, but I did want to call them out as just in case, like you were curious about them. And then you might see the Sora tab here. The only thing I want to call out here is you can't use Sora on a free tier, and it does pop you out to this separate user interface over here. I did a whole other stream on Sora. I'm not going to cover Sora anymore here, other than to note that it's included with the ChatGPT Plus plan. But again, we covered ChatGPT here today, but all the concepts here are very much the same. You want to we were fiddling around with Grok a little bit over there. You still want to be careful about things like hallucinations. You want to be careful about things like ensuring that you recognizing that these models are trained at a snapshot in time, so they might not have the latest information, especially if it's about a developing story or something that just came out yesterday. You need to be cognizant of when is it appropriate to use a reasoning model versus not. And for context there, again, the reason that's important is just from that quota perspective. Like you don't want to run down your quota of using like the reasoning models if you don't necessarily need the reasoning element to them. So I guess that is something. So that kind of ends this stream. I do want to add another. So I knew. So I see your chat there in the in the comments, Kevin. I knew that you had created one, which is why I didn't I was like, I think that I know somebody that's created one of these GPTs before. But anyway, I'll have to check that out. I've actually not checked yours out before, so thanks for popping that link in the chat there. But anyway, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. Oh, I do want to cover maybe something that's slightly more advanced, but not necessarily like that much more advanced. So what we covered today was like the various ChatGPT services. But what we did not cover today, and what I've covered in other streams, is this concept of an API. And what an API is, if you're not familiar with what an API is it's a way for us software people or software engineers to be able to interact with these services in a coding kind of fashion. And so you might be wondering, okay, so does ChatGPT, like these plans that we've been looking at, these paid plans like ChatGPT Plus versus ChatGPT Pro, what do you get with those in terms of the API? And the answer is nothing. And you might be wondering, well, that's kind of a bummer, isn't that? And it's like, well, you have to understand with the API, because I can code things with that, I can write a script that would basically hit ChatGPT 1,000 times within the span of 5 seconds. And so that's the thing that they need to be careful of is and most likely why they've not made an API available as part of these plans is like you would have people like me abusing that. I would abuse the heck out of it. And so let's talk about the pricing of the APIs and such, and why this starts to become more important when, like, because I mentioned before, like if you are just like a ChatGPT Plus user, like there is not really any reason why you would ever drop down to a 4.0 mini. But like this is where it starts to get important from the pricing perspective of the API. So let's go over to the API now. All right, so the API is priced at a token level, and so what a token is imagine it's more or less one word. It's too complex to explain for our purposes here today. It's more or less one word, 4 or 5 like letters long, 4 or 5 characters long, and you can see here for the pricing that you are priced on the number of input tokens that you give versus the number of output tokens that you give. And so like you can see here for O1, this is just obscenely expensive. For O1, you have like $15 for 1 million tokens, and then $60 for 1 million tokens on output. So there's that. So let's keep those numbers in mind. $15 for input, 1 million input tokens, $60 for 1 million output tokens. This is O1. Now let us go down to, let's go down to O4 mini. So we are seeing $15 down here. Now we're seeing 15 cents down here. And this is what we're talking about here. We're talking, what is that? Literally like a 100x cost difference here. And so that's where we in the AI engineering space, we need to be very careful about which models we're using. We want to right size the model for the project. So you can even see, so yesterday, ChatGPT did, or OpenAI, I'm sorry, announced their newest version of the model called GPT 4.5. And you can see, oh my gosh, this thing is just obscenely expensive. Especially compared to like 4.0, and 4.0 is a very good model. 4.0 is only $10 for 1 million output tokens, versus 4.5, which is $150 for 1 million output tokens. And this is where it starts to become a little bit of a no-brainer on like trying to think about like the like what you need to use the models for. So for most people, and like I guess for developers, we're not limited to just these models. Obviously, there's the Anthropic models and such. But for most developers, I would actually say you should test with all of them, but you might not want to test with these reasoning models, depending on your use case. So like, for example, like let's say you're trying to build a use case where you are taking like call transcripts and you're just trying to summarize them down into a paragraph. I would never recommend a reasoning model for something like that. Like there's just no need for a reasoning model there. What I would recommend instead is try to test out one of these two other models here. I would and see how you fare. So like if you're getting good results from 4.0 mini, then yeah, go for that, because obviously that's the cheapest. But however, let's say you're not getting the most ideal results, then maybe you want to knock yourself up to 4.0, or even testing on one of the other models that are offered by one of the other model competitors like Anthropic Claude or whatnot. But let's say let's say like you're really, if you noticed, in my ChatGPT Plus account, there's actually no capability for me to test out GPT 4.5 right now. That is strictly locked from a user experience perspective behind the pro level. There is still a capability, however, for me to gently test out GPT 4.5 through the API, and I don't even necessarily need to be have coding experience. So what do I need to do there is I'm gonna log in here. So this is logging into the developer platform. This is not logging into like ChatGPT as we've been kind of analyzing in this stream. So okay, apparently that was not the right button. I'm gonna go to the API platform, and so you will have to sign up for an account, and you will have to provide a credit card here. Now this is the one area where you actually, I mentioned before with with ChatGPT, like you just you pay the flat fee, and then if you start going over, then you just get cut off. Well, you can actually go in here and set your like price quotas. So I actually do have this set for myself. But if you don't have these like the price quotas set for yourself, then you can exceed your threshold and start getting charged like big money. So you can see here, I've set a safety budget for myself. Like, so I get an alert anytime I spend over $5, and then I also cut myself off at the knees if I spend more than $20. So if you do sign up for this, I would highly encourage that you go in here and set these thresholds for yourself. So that way, even in the worst case scenario, if your API key gets leaked or whatever, then you're not gonna wake up in the morning to a $10,000 OpenAI bill. But what I wanted to highlight here is that there's actually, how do I get to it? There's a playground in here. So this is a user interface playground, and so you can see here, this is very much like the ChatGPT interface. It's just much more of like a developer kind of focus. But what I want to highlight here is in our model drop-down menu is we can actually select 4.5 in here. I think, yeah, there we go. I don't know what the difference between these two is. We'll just go ahead and select this one, and so then I can start asking questions. So write me a short story about an alien eating pizza and it's in a spaceship. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and you can see this is very much the same experience. It's just it's I don't believe it's saving your, well, I guess it might be saving your history, but it is not making use of your ChatGPT subscription. I am paying for this from my API right now. So it's I believe I believe now these days they may have removed this requirement, but like because they were concerned about people like defaulting on their bill, like you actually you would basically have to give like buy like $5 in credits. So I think that's what I've been doing. So it just whittled away part of my credits there. But yeah, so if you really have a strong hankering to test out like a model like GPT 4.5, then this is another way you can do it without having to pay the $200 a month fee. Now, to be clear, this is my first time testing out 4.5 myself. From what I hear across the internet is that it's very good for writing purposes, but that other than that, it's not really good for much else. Like I actually saw somebody online do like a shootout, if you will, between like 4.0 and 4.5, like on various questions, and just asked like almost like a blind taste test, if you will. He gave the two different results, and like using his poll, he said, all right, which one do you think is better, A or B? And his result, so again, he was comparing 4.5 to 4.0. This is actually Andrei Karpathian. In case anybody's curious, you can go see this for yourself on X. And so he gave 4 out of 5. He gave 5 different questions or 5 different samples and asked people to vote on those. And 4 out of the 5 times, people selected 4.0 as actually the better output quality. So that, again, another thing you just got to consider is what are you really getting from these models? And especially when you see the price of this one, my gosh, the price. I hope they bring it down. Again, this was just launched yesterday. So as time has gone on with these other models like 4.0 and such, like these prices have come down over time. But again, this is why somebody like me in particular, why I'm extra cognizant about the model I select, whereas you as an average user of like the ChatGPT interface over here might not be as concerned about that. And that's okay. All right. So I think that covers everything that I intended to cover for today. Let me just, does anybody else have any questions or anything? But while I review my notes one final time, and if not, we will go ahead and close out. Okay, I think I covered everything I want to cover, and I don't see any additional questions. All right, so I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you start to see the value of how you can use generative AI for your own daily work. From both a personal and professional perspective, I can't imagine life anymore without generative AI. I've become that reliant and use it that often. And it's not one of these things where I'm only doing that just because I'm a machine learning engineer, and I'm actually finding quite a bit of use out of this. And I guess we didn't display voice mode, but and that's just because like I don't know with my setup here, I don't know if I could share voice mode all that well. But I've had some really good conversations, like philosophical conversations with voice mode. And so you need to be careful, of course, like with how you use these tools, like because you can actually sort of use ChatGPT voice mode as a mental health counselor. You just need to be careful of like the human touch, I guess, if you will. What am I trying to say there? Like it's just different going to like a professional versus using an AI, and the AI is continuing to get better, but you still want to be very cognizant about those sorts of things. All right, well, that's all for today. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.